Hello and welcome, everyone. Brian Smith here to talk a little Miami Hurricanes recruiting as Dylan Day head coach Darrell Asberry at Southern Lab got a hold of me this past Friday, and we talked the full gamut of what his star pupil is able to do. When I first reached out to him, it was via email. I just wanted a couple of details. I was kind of curious. We ended up playing phone tag, and then he finally got a hold of me. Glad he did. First off, Coach Asbury's great guy. If you can't enjoy a conversation with him, then you're probably not very easy to deal with. He's a great human being. Second off, he knows football from a front and backwards standpoint. He understands how to move a player to a different spot to gain the maximum out of him. He also understands that at the high school level, one player can often dominate a game and you kind of have to ride him, which he's done with Dylan in certain situations. I'll delve into that here in just a few moments. He also understands that some schools missed. They missed on recruiting Dylan, which we were both a little perplexed by. He obviously gets to see him consistently, and I've seen the young man's film several times. I've actually watched it a few times just out of sheer entertainment. So why he's a 3-star by the rankings and all that, I'm not sure. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'll talk more about the recruiting rankings and all that stuff a little bit later. Here's the key with it overall before I break down what I learned about Dylan from Coach Asberry. Miami found a player that I knew was good, but when you gain information about the off the field, how they work, how they go to class, how they go about their daily routine, that's when you truly find out when a young man has the opportunity to be a great player, not just a starter, not just a guy that makes it at the U and it's all cool and all that. This is a guy that can impact his community long term because he goes to the NFL. This is a guy that can impact his community long term because he did it the right way. And those are things that I think we need more of from sport. It's one of the reasons football was created, to give you the 20-second version. Football was one of the sports that was created to find something for young men that were pretty aggressive to do to keep them out of trouble, at least in part. There were a lot of deaths and everything in football in the late 1800s through the early 30s and 40s because, equipment wasn't good. They kept it around because they were worried it was going to be worse if they just kind of turned them loose. Obviously, it's evolved into something much different. Well, Dylan doesn't need it from that perspective, but he is a violent hitter and he's a very smart player. So I went through and I wrote down on a Google Doc some of the things that we're talking about. I didn't even tape the conversation I went into. I had no intentions of it being that kind of convert. I just learned more than I expected. One of the things that I had learned was that his best position, I was perplexed. And you can only see so much based on film what a young man's best position is going to be. Okay. Is it going to be corner? Is it going to be receiver, safety, etc.? So I asked Coach Asberry. That was the main theme. He said free safety. I asked why. And he went on to state that the key here was the fact that the way Dylan played the football in the air. And I could not agree more that his ball skills are very unique. He baited several quarterbacks into making a throw that, honestly, it's probably not going to happen as often at the college level. It shouldn't. If it doesn't, that kid's probably not going to play long. Throwing late down the middle. How many times have you heard an announcer on TV or a coach or a quarterback after the game say, I shouldn't have done that? Dylan got guys to do it because he would play off a little bit and then he'd hit the jets. He has short area burst. I don't know how you measure that because we're talking about like already running and then just out of the blue, he's at like 60, 70%. He can go to 100 faster than about anybody. So what I want to do is see what he can do at the next level when there's a little more physicality. He's a little slight. He's a $170, give or take. I think he'll end up at Miami 190-ish. So, that's the natural maturation. Typically 15 pounds is like bare minimum, even like DB, slot corners, et cetera, will gain in college. These weight training programs are also nutrition. They are also training the amount of calories they eat is insane. It's almost impossible not to gain 15 pounds. You can be lazy as all get out in the weight room and gain 15 pounds in 2 years, let alone 4 or 5. So year one, that's my only concern. Otherwise, I would almost pencil him in as a starter. He's so instinctive and works so hard and is so versatile. When I say starter, I'm not saying I know where. That's where it gets unique. And we go back to the free safety. Miami's losing Cameron Kinchins or they're going to lose James Williams. We don't know. It depends how the season goes, who stays healthy. They're both tremendous talents. Obviously, Kinchins was an All-American. He's already got his name up in the rafters in their indoor facility. And congrats to him. He's a tremendous kid, and he's earned it all the way through. He was a highly rated kid out of Miami Northwestern. But one or both of them is going to leave. There are some young guys coming up, and I'm not taking anything away from that. But I think Dylan Day can come in and at the very least be on the 2 deep as a true freshman. And he's going to enroll early. That matters. More you learn the playbook, the better. And at certain positions, it doesn't matter as much. Corner and running back, probably not as much. Safety is a little different deal, especially in Lance Guidry's defense. So he likes to run some multiple, and it's probably a little harder for like the linebackers and DNs than it is in some other schemes. He'll run some 3-man. He can run some 4-man, different fronts. You still got to know where your teammates are to a certain degree, though, and safeties typically help align a defense. Well, based on what Coach Asberry communicated with me, I am all in on him understanding, Dylan, that is, that he needs to look at things from a broader perspective. Yeah, he can play man corner. He has the ability to do that. That's fantastic. He probably can impact the game more from free safety, even if his stats don't say it, because he got the outside linebacker to move over a gap, or he communicated something to the corner about one of the guys that he knew. It's all the stuff that don't go in the stat sheet that great players do. Think of it this way: Ray Lewis, Ronnie Lott, Lawrence Taylor, some of the guys you think of, Reggie White, Bruce Smith, anybody you think of in the last 40 years ended up being a Hall of Famer during like the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Guys that went in the Hall in the last 5 to 15 years, something like that. Defensively, some of these guys, man, they just murdered people physically, so they were fun to watch. But it's the little things on what they did to help their teammates too. Carl Banks was a guy that played outside linebacker opposite of Lawrence Taylor. He was the guy that wasn't as flat. I mean, Lawrence Taylor is about as good a player as there's ever been. I'm not debating that. But Banks did a lot of the little things that helped Taylor. He'd set the edge, and here comes Taylor on the backside. He'd get all the glory for killing the guy, but he made the play because it set the edge. Dylan Day is a lot like that too, and how he's played, and he helped some of his teammates. And based on what Coach Asberry has told me, he has a chance to be that guy at the next level. Now, we're not projecting that he's going to be Lawrence Taylor at the NFL level. Let me be very clear. Just high school to college, he has a chance to be a great player because of this. The physical is there, but to be great at the college level, especially at safety or anything in the middle of the field, there's more complexity to it. And it's about the playbook, film, understanding individual players. The film work is ridiculous. You're not going to be great unless you delve into that a lot. Dylan's the kind of kid who'll do it. Now, what else can he do at Miami? I think the nickel position is the wild card. It's the biggest pain in the butt for a defensive coordinator to figure out. And when I say that, I'm not talking about going into the season and saying, okay, this guy right over here, number 12, is going to be our nickel. I'm talking about a guy that is going to be your nickel game to game, because you're going up against teams that change who they play at slot. And sometimes they even change it within the game, within the same few sets of plays, within the same freaking group of players. This is a comment that I use a lot on podcasts, whether I'm on a radio show, somebody else's pod, my own. The biggest, and I've talked to college coaches on defensive side about this. This isn't my opinion. This is college coaches too. The biggest pain in the butt is you come out and you see 12 personnel, 22 personnel. There's 2 tight ends. You want to put 3 linebackers on the field. They're going to run the football. Well, they might on first down, but then they go no huddle and they go 4 or 5 wide. Maybe they got a 225-pound running back in the backfield, but both tight ends are 235 or bigger, and they're both in the slot. Now you need somebody at that slot position that can take on the run after beating a guy that weighs 40 pounds more than he does, blocking him, and then try to take on a 225-pound running back. And then on third down, same formation, same alignment, screen. That tight end's trying to block you. They're throwing a slip screen to that running back. He's getting a charge at you after you take on that tight end. All these are completely disadvantageous to a defense. You need very special players here mentally to have any chance. And this is why teams run those. I mean, I know they're annoying. Oh, why are they doing that? 2 yards, 2 yards. If that guy misses that little slip screen, that little look screen, whatever terminology it is for a particular look or within a system, Lincoln Riley says it doesn't matter. One guy misses, there's nobody there, man. You better darn well trust that slot guy to at least, if he doesn't, again, doesn't have to make the play, force the play into his help, get everybody lined up. Somebody's out of position. That's 6. That's 6. I guarantee you when Miami goes up to Tallahassee this year, whatever player is at slot, whether it's a running back, whether it's a flex tight end or a receiver, you miss on that dude, he gone. Miami has the safeties this year, obviously, to help make that work, and as good as they're ever going to get. But again, 1 or 2 are going to be gone. So in 24, Dylan, he might be that guy that ends up being part of the package at slot. They're not exactly in the most advantageous position after this year because, all the reps have gone to the 2 great players, and they should. It's just part of college football. Sometimes you're going to get caught no matter what you do the next year because you had 2 elite players. They get all the reps. You need impact recruits, even if the recruiting services have missed, and all of them have on Dylan Day, I can assure you. So, final point about him. This is a kid that has tremendous upside once he gets bigger. I've made that a point. I've also talked about his maturity, his football acumen, his ability to play the ball in the air, etc. Now it's just about him and finding a niche with the other players that Miami signs. And obviously the 24 class is nowhere near done. As I record this, they're getting ready to go into the big weekend next weekend for the recruits and all the June stuff getting started. Miami has tons of great players coming in. If they can get a group of DBs, let's say they sign 3 or 4, I have no idea. Maybe it's 5. These things take care of themselves. And they work well together, and several of them come in together in spring. They can at least, quote unquote, alleviate some of the pain of losing one or both of Kinchins and Williams. And don't discount Devontae Brown taking himself into the NFL draft after this year too. He played 3 years at UCF. He was pretty good. He's got the length and all the things the NFL's looking at. If he has a good year, he could leave too. There's going to be ample opportunity at Miami for at least some of these young guys. Now, the Canes have young players. I'm not even going to go into names and all that from this past class and the one after that. It's just going to be an open door. My philosophy is if Dylan can have a solid group with him coming in, they're at least going to push some of the other guys that are already on campus to make an impact because they're going to need depth. What happened in 22 when Miami got banged up at corner? They got killed. And some guys were playing, at least a little bit banged up and hurt too, which never helps. It's part of football. But when you can't rotate, and at will, at corner especially, because you got to run so many sprints, man, that 4 quarter is rough. So I'm really hoping they get another corner, get to go with like Damari and some of these Stafford and these guys, because if they can do that, that way you can focus at least for year 1 what Dylan does. And I'm hoping it's free safety and slot corner. Because he's a versatile physical kid, and he can make a big impact for Miami that way. I really think he has a chance to start at one of the spots. I do. Again, thanks to Coach Asberry for his phone call back to me. Great guy. All the luck to Southern Lab this next year. That's a program that's always had players going to SEC schools. They play a real schedule. It's not the biggest school in the world, but Asberry also told me that they play up. A little extra note here. They play up during the regular season, smart, so that they have an opportunity during the playoff run to be more equipped to do something. That's a lot of coaches take the easy route there, and Coach Asberry and Southern Lab does not. So anyway, please like this podcast, share it, hit that notification bell, and communicate with your friends. I'm going to be doing a lot of other podcasts about recruits going to Miami and everywhere else, from USC to out east to Penn State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Georgia, just kids that I get to see because I travel around Florida, I travel around Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, all over the place. I'm going to go see Deuce Knight this year. He's one of the top 25 prospects. He's a quarterback out of Lucedale, Mississippi. I'm going to go all over the place. It's what I love to do. It's what I'm passionate about. And I want to bring that to you guys. Everybody have a great day. Thank you very much and take care.